I made a video on the Lowland League a while back, so I had to follow it up with the Highland Football League. I've never discriminated against those of higher altitude, and I'm not about to start now. So here are the Scottish Highland Football League stadiums. Spain Park, Banks OD. That's a perfect name, to be honest, because I was just thinking the other day that Spain and Aberdeen are basically one and the same. Even more fitting is the name of the club itself. It's presumably called Banks OD because the ground is situated in a rather nice spot perched above the River Dee. So, Banks OD. They're on the banks of the River Dee. Genius. Ooh, that is an interesting looking stand. Glebe Park, Brecon City, also known as the Hedgeman. And there's a bit of hedge action before we've even got inside. Not only is that aesthetically pleasing, but it stops people watching the game without paying their £10 to get in. And to be clear, that's not £10 sterling, it's £10 of barley. Things are a bit different in the far north. Anyway, it's worth sacrificing a small portion of your yield to watch a game here. Seems like a lovely ground. Dudgeon Park, Rora Rangers. These guys have opted for the less attractive and less effective stone block wall to border their field. Inside there's just one seated stand, the one that you see here, as well as a shelter for standing spectators over on the other side. Pretty simple, but it's another nice ground to be fair. Victoria Park, Bucky Thistle. I could be wrong, but I believe this place is named after Buckfast, which is often abbreviated to Bucky. I've heard it's quite popular in Scotland. Like I said, I could be wrong, but it's never happened before. One unusual feature here is this grass section that sits in front of one of the stands. Bit odd, but I guess it's better than concrete. Grant Street Park. Oh, for Clachnacudden. I'm glad we only have to say that once. The name of the city itself is Inverness, not Clachnacudden. Clachnacudden means the stone of the tub. It's named after an actual stone that still exists, I believe. It's probably over there somewhere. Clachnacudden's ground has a little bit of stonework, but it pales in comparison to the sacred Clachnacudden itself. Just a stone's throw from Banff Beach is Princess Royal Park, home to Deveron Vale. The club have made the correct decision of facing the one and only stand towards the natural beauty that is the North Sea. I can only imagine how cold it must get at this ground when there's a strong northerly wind in the middle of winter, but I'm sure it's worth enduring. North Lodge Park, Formerton United. This beautiful little ground belongs to a rare group of stadiums that has a larger capacity than its town's population. Well, in this case it's a village, Pitmedden, not Formerton as you may have expected. To be honest, I think there might actually be a few of those in this league. There aren't that many big towns in the north of Scotland. Bowsley Park, Fraserburgh. This is another pretty ground, but in a different sort of way. Firstly, the exterior is made up of a decent amount of stonework, but even more impressive is this beautiful Jesus building. A church, I think they are more commonly known as. The town itself is known for a different type of building, a non-Jesus building. It's home to the world famous Museum of Scottish Lighthouses. Wow! I wonder how many lighthouses they've got in there.
Wow.
Mossett Park, Forest Mechanics. That's actually a fitting name for the club, because not only does the grandstand look like a race car with all that advertising plastered over it, but another car related feature, and perhaps the most interesting thing about this ground, is that they had to move the entire ground around 50 meters or so when this motorway was built. It's a bit of a shame the road didn't go straight through the middle. It would have been the world's first Frogger Stadium. Christie Park, Huntly. When this ground first opened in 1921, it was originally known as Strathbogie Park. They changed it a few years later, presumably because Strathbogie has bogey in it. Also, it's now named after the guy that donated the land to the club, so that makes sense. Other than that, it's your standard fare. Harlaw Park, Inverurie Loco Works. Once again, we have a club name that gives a nod to the club's history. They are called Loco Works because it was founded by workers who serviced trains from the Great North of Scotland Railway. And that's actually quite a common thing in Eastern Europe. Not the Scotland part, but there are plenty of teams with locomotive in their title. Kinnock Park, Keith. Just Keith. The town's called Keith. I'm intrigued. Let's learn more about Keith. Keith has been around for a while. Over the years, Keith has grown and grown to become quite large. They are quite fond of Scotch eggs and suffer from eczema. Huh? Don't know what that's about. Grant Park, Lossiemouth. Wait, didn't we already have this one? Oh no, that was Grant Street Park. Clacknacuddon, of course. You'd think that Clacknacuddon wouldn't allow such a similar name. You know, given how much money and merchandising rights is at stake. Anyway, this is a nice little ground. I quite like how the lawn sort of rises into the main stand here. Station Park, Nairn County. They call it Station Park because it's situated right next to the train station. So there you go, remember that one in case it comes up in a pub quiz. It won't. There's not too much that differentiates this stadium from the rest of them. We've got a shelter on one side and the main stand which houses all the seats on the other. Macassack Park, Rothes. This ground is named after a whiskey magnate, oddly enough. But even more unusual is that he was a first-class cricketer, which is a little perplexing. Because I was informed by this guy that in Scotland, cricket is considered to be a homosexual martial art. He did just play one match, to be fair. Apparently, this club only started playing in tangerine shirts after they purchased some floodlights from Dundee United's ground. Seems odd, perhaps it was part of the deal. Seafield Park, Strathspey Thistle. Seafield Park is not by the sea, but it is still situated in a beautiful spot, overlooked by some heavily wooded hills, which is just as good. And you don't have to worry about seagulls stealing your chips. Actually, I don't know. It's only 36 kilometers away from the sea. Perhaps if they are especially good chips, the seagulls might make the journey. The Hawes, Torriff United. The Hawes might sound funny, but it basically means a low-lying meadow situated right by a river. And that's pretty much what this ground is. As you might expect, it is prone to flooding. Just recently the ground was like half a meter or so below the water. Other than that, they do have an odd looking stand that is like a scaled back version of what we saw at Spain Park. Harmsworth Park, Wick Academy. The Wick Academy is not just an integral institute that helps develop the skills of budding candle makers, but it is the northernmost club in the Highland Football League. John O'Groats is literally walking distance away. But then again, so is Land's End. I usually appreciate a grass hill as a nice relaxing place to enjoy the game from. But in this case, I'm appreciating it purely for toboggan purposes. So there you have it. As for my favourite, it'll have to be Glebe Park. Even without all the hedges, it still might have been my pick. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done so already, and as always, thanks for watching, have a good one.